So the combat system in Xenoblade 2 is a controversial topic. You have people who think it's the greatest thing ever, and others who say it's boring and so terrible that it makes the game unplayable. For me, the combat does have its problems, but it's one of my favorite battle systems in any game. It has so much complexity and gives you incredible satisfaction when you finally pull off that huge, devastating attack and break the damage threshold. At first glance, the combat follows closely to the typical action RPG format, however it is much deeper and complex than that. In fact, it took me about 30 hours until I finally understood the big picture of how everything worked, since the game doesn't reveal the whole system right away. It just keeps building and building upon itself until you can create the most devastating combos and attacks. Each of your party's 3 drivers has 3 blades they can switch between during battle, each with their own elements, attacks, effects, etc. Let's go into detail on how each system in place builds upon itself. Auto attacks are exactly what they sound like. Your drivers will auto attack on their own. These attacks charge up your driver arts, and as a pro tip, if you press up on the joystick, you can perform faster auto attacks, building up your arts much faster. This can help with a lot of the tougher enemies in the game. Your auto attacks will charge up your driver arts, which are more powerful attacks that also have side effects. Arts are unique and can heal the party, drop HP potions, perform more damage depending on your positioning, buff the party or debuff the enemy, and even initiate driver combos. Use enough driver arts to charge up your blade specials. These are even more powerful attacks but are performed by your blades. You can continue to charge up your special to greater levels, 1 through 3, and finally level 4 being the ultimate special, which stops the fight but is only obtained once you reach max affinity in battle. So in summation, auto attacks charge up driver arts charge up your blade specials, and these are the 3 different levels of arts that you can use. After that, we get into the 3 different combos that are available. First, you have driver combos, which consist of break, topple, launch, and smash. These are achieved by chaining certain arts together. Topple and launch leave the enemy defenseless and unable to perform any actions or attacks. These also extend the elemental effect time of blade specials, which are important for the blade combos. Each blade is a certain element: fire and water, ice and wind, light and dark, electric and earth, with each being opposing weaknesses of one another. Orbs are placed when specials with specified elements are followed with increasing levels from 1 to 3. An elemental orb circles the enemy following the combo and is the type of the last special used, which is used for a later technique, which we will talk about in a bit. The completion of the combo also enables a ceiling effect on the enemy, barring it from using certain abilities or effects. They offer a variety of effects, and I found them more useful towards the end of the game with tyrants, super bosses, or even more so in the challenge land from the DLC. You can only have one active ceiling effect at a time, so each new effect takes place of the current one, but an orb of each of the 8 elements can be placed and is recommended for the final technique. Before we talk about that though, there's one more combo: fusion combos. These are triggered when a blade combo and driver combo are in effect at the same time. It fills the party gauge and extends the duration of all active combos. So again, in summation, you have driver combos, blade combos, and fusion combos. And finally, these all build up to one super awesome, masterful technique, the chain attack. The party gauge is filled while fighting and is usually used to revive fallen allies, but if filled completely, allows you to initiate a chain attack. Go in rounds with 1 blade special attack for each driver, and rounds continue if you burst an orb that turn, extending the chain attack. Each round represents the level of the blade special used, up to 3. You also continue for 1 round if you kill the enemy, resulting in an overkill. Finally, if you continue a chain attack until you fill up the chain attack gauge, it will trigger a level 4 special attack. Any remaining orbs will burst and cause even more damage. It's not uncommon to do the max damage here. So that's quite the progression system, and we are only just scratching the surface. So many levels of complexity and damage that makes it so satisfying. There's so many other aspects that also affect your damage multiplier. Driver skills and blade affinity trees, battle arts and skills, pouch items, enemy type weaknesses, driver classes, weapon classes, and aux cores. There's just so many more details and things you can get more in depth in to really tailor your battles to your playing style. Plus you have Poppy, who doesn't even follow any of the same conventions as the rest of the blades. She functions more like a robot where you equip certain parts to assign it elements, augment effects, arts, etc. by using stones that are only collected in a tedious minigame, Tiger Tiger. I could probably spend an hour talking about all the different builds and strategies you can create out of all these mechanics, but I'd like to spend the end of this video discussing the review of the combat by Beatemups, who is a popular Nintendo channel, because he represents the other side of the opinion here. He gives a good perspective of the criticisms that the battle system is up against. I enjoy looking at other perspectives other than my own because it allows me to analyze things from different angles and take a more holistic and critical approach that isn't blinded by my feelings of the game. So here are a few of his main points.
But essentially, at the base of it all, you are waiting and auto-attacking. Every time I unlock something that I think is going to add to the combat and add to what it is I'm doing every time I get into a battle, it just adds another button I need to wait for.
So yeah, this is essentially true, but can't you just say that about any game?
There was a lot of things I would have preferred Xenoblade to do differently, and then along came Years 8, which did literally all of those things. So I can't help but not compare them. They are very similar RPGs, but fundamentally at their core, they have a lot of really big differences, like the combat.
But really, I like the comparison he makes to Years 8. He really enjoyed the combat in that JRPG, but I strongly disliked it. So really this is just a matter of preference here. Personally, I prefer to be focusing more on my complex strategy, timing, positioning, combos, etc. rather than button mashing. But again, that's just my opinion.
You don't have to worry about the arts, you don't have to worry about the specials. Your auto attacks and the other characters' auto attacks and whatever the heck they're doing will beat the enemies for you.
This is definitely true for the early parts of the game, and definitely if you are fighting a weak enemy compared to your party level, but the game purposely gives you weaker enemies on average in the early game so you can get the hang of the combat and practice before requiring you to use more powerful strategies later on. This way you can master one complex technique before being thrown a new one that makes you rethink your combat strategies. I remember one of the early bosses in the game, I kept dying because I couldn't figure out how the blade combos and everything worked with the elemental orbs. But when I finally looked it up and watched some videos and understood what was going on, I was able to take care of that boss no problem. Yeah, auto attacks will beat some of those early enemies, but later in the game it just won't work. Also, a level 20 Ardoon isn't the same as, say, a level 20 Alfonso or any other species in the game. Think Pokemon. Different species have different stats, health, etc. So some take longer to kill than others. This is where the specials, combos, and stats come into play to make it quicker to demolish your foes.
I don't necessarily want to be playing a game that I need to be 40 hours in before everything starts gelling and making sense, when I really haven't enjoyed the first 40 hours.
Now, I completely understand this. Really, I do. I have the same sentiment about a lot of other games that I've played too. A game should be fun from the get-go. I don't want to invest 40 hours into a game before it becomes fun, especially with so many fantastic titles to play on Nintendo Switch. Where Beatemups and I differ though is that I still enjoy the beginning of the game. You guys know I love indie games, so I'm used to playing pretty short games at times. But when I sit down to play a JRPG, my thinking is just different. I invest my whole life into it. I know it's something that is going to be a super long experience and is going to require me to take quite a bit of time to figure out how stuff actually works. That's just the nature of this genre. Now, can you imagine if right from the start of the game, all these battle mechanics were thrown at you? It was hard enough learning the system, having bits and pieces slowly unlocked throughout the story. So again, this is just a matter of preference here. I feel the same way, but I typically expect the beginning of a JRPG to be a bit slower, and I appreciate that for the long-term experience. JRPGs are a very niche genre, and a lot of people just don't like them, and that's okay. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the best selling in the series and one of the top games on Switch, selling 2 million copies. So it makes sense that Beatemups and other fans had their eye on this game and wanted to give it a try. I'm so glad they did. More people should try this game, and just him talking about it gets more eyes on it. Because of this, we have to be receptive of the criticisms and welcome these new fans. But I want to know what all you thought about the combat. Is it boring and slow, too complex to understand, or is it just right? Let me know what you think. Now originally my review was going to be 5 parts, but I was able to fit it into 4 videos. So the last video will be coming out soon, and I'll be discussing everything there is about Torna, all the DLC, and what's next for the Xeno series.